Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of the Trans Lesson Plan, your go-to podcast for transgender history. As always, I'm your host, Mari, and it is an absolute pleasure to have you all here today. Now, I'm actually recording this podcast 2 days early, primarily because next week I will be very busy with Pride Month stuff. I'm going to be very busy with work. I'm going to be very busy with school. Plus, I'm going to be traveling to Chicago to visit my family and also attend Chicago's Pride Parade. So, well, not the parade, but the festival of Pride. The parade technically is until the week after. But going to see family for a couple of days. I miss them and actually attend my first Chicago Pride. So I'm very excited about that. And because my schedule is going to be extremely busy next week, I said, let me go ahead and knock this podcast out now. So right now, I'm on this Friday. Just got off work not too long ago, relaxing. This weekend, I'm going to be catching up on sleep because of the last couple of days, I have not been really getting any. And actually give you all a surprise of dropping 2 episodes today. Like I said, although I'm recording on Friday, this will actually be released on Sunday. So give you all 2 brand new episodes, which I'm actually extremely excited about. Because I don't believe I've done 2 episodes in the same day. So this is great. This is the 5th episode of season 5. And you all, as you may know, if you've seen a pattern with me, I normally try to keep it within 6 episodes a season. Give myself a little bit of some time to get your breather and then give you all a brand new season after that. So that's exactly what's going to happen, of course. So with that, we have one more episode to kind of wrap up season 5, and then we'll continue on with getting season 6 produced and ready for you. I don't know who we is because I'm a one-man show, but I think you get the idea of this here. But for those who are new here today, I want to welcome, obviously, all my listeners. So I'm going to start with the new ones, of course. If you're new, welcome to the Trans Lesson Plan. I hope you absolutely enjoyed today's podcast. If you're unfamiliar with the Trans Lesson Plan, I do a very quick brief about what it is. Like I said, it's your go-to podcast for transgender history. So anything you want to hear in an audio format, you come to me. Second, my podcast isn't just strictly history. It actually serves as a platform for education, to be able to provide all of my users, all of my listeners. I'm sorry, I'm in IT, so I say users a lot during the daytime. But all my listeners, valuable insights really into transgender history. My goal really for this podcast is to inspire understanding, promote inclusivity, spark conversations about the transgender community, obviously in a positive light. And with that, me being, and I guess you could say I'm an expert. I think with this podcast, it kind of helps back that up. I do study transgender history outside, going to school for it, a lot of moving pieces. But also, just provide, resources for further learning just in the audible format. So each episode of this podcast or each episode of my podcast are intentionally designed to be very concise yet comprehensive for a duration about 15, 20 minutes, sometimes less, maybe sometimes a little bit more. Never really goes over 30 minutes, just to get your heads up. So the reason why is because I want to give you something to start with. And then you can learn more on your own time. That's the beauty of giving you small snippets and then, hopefully really get back in to learn more. So that's the goal. So if you are new here, welcome. I greatly appreciate you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. Greatly appreciate that. And of course, for my returnees, you all are absolutely amazing. I truly want to say that because every time I come back and look at the analytics for this podcast, our subscriber numbers go up, our listener counts goes up, our audience size goes up, and it's all because of you. So thank you so much for continuing to support this podcast. I absolutely 1000% appreciate it. Like, I don't think you all understand how much it means to me, knowing I do this part-time whenever I really have free time, but doing it more consistently has been my biggest realization, and I can say a success story in a way since doing this all over again from the COVID year. So I greatly appreciate you all for continuing to support, leave positive reviews from the bigots that leave terrible reviews on this podcast and on all platforms. But continue to support, and that's what I greatly appreciate you all for. So thank you so much. So I'm going to stop bantering and actually get into today's content. That was a very long introduction. 5 minutes worth of my time. I'm so sorry. But today, we're actually going to be dusting off our little history books. You know what I'm saying? And I actually want to go into something that I found most recently via Apple News. And I actually did a little bit of research on this to confirm, which was accurate. About the exciting life of Emperor Elagabalus. Elagabalus is how you pronounce it. I will leave it. Obviously, it's in the title, so I'm trying my best. And this is actually pronounced in the Italian dialect because Elagabalus is actually from Rome. So we're gonna look into this famous emperor. And the reason why I want to shine a light on Elagabalus is because this is actually in response to the North Hertfordshire Museum had made actually a fascinating discovery to basically reclassify Elagabalus as a transgender woman. And if you haven't seen that in the news, just look it up on a simple Google search. You'll find it all across that basic search there. And because of this, obviously they're going to change, her pronouns to she, her. But this is really just to highlight that when we think about ancient history, how far back it goes, what are historians who focus on these particular specialties as it relates to these individuals, or as part of history, and how we can actually take a look into a little bit more of the gender fluidity that happened from a very, very long time. So if you don't know, there is a coin that has Elagabalus's face on it, which they do occasionally display along with other, LGBTQ plus artifacts in this specific museum as well. So with that, I want to actually chat about Emperor or Empress, technically, Elagabalus. So let's chat really quick, right? Elagabalus, born in around the 203 AD time frame, a descendant of the Severus family, right, had a brief but thrilling adventure in ancient Rome. She used to be with the family priest for the sun god Agabala, who was worshipped as a black meteoric stone. Elagabalus was quite new to the whole ruling thing. She had made some interesting decisions once she got into that position. She actually started up things by basically marrying a Vestal virgin and even arranged a wedding between her god, Galba, and Urania. A courage. I'm probably saying all these wrong. Bear with me, people. I'm not very good at the whole dialect thing. Who was a big shot. And the senators had to dress up in quirky costumes and perform like very grand ceremonies. And once you think about that, when we think about what that looks like today, it's basically theater, for all of us here today, as we know it. Elagabalus, unfortunately, was killed at the tender age of 18. Ruled Rome for about a very quick 4 years. And however, her reign was anything but dull during the time of when she was empress. It was loaded with daring deeds and bold proclamations that shook up Roman society then and still make her an interesting figure for history enthusiasts today. As we could guess, her gender identity was a topic of conversation, with ancient sources claiming that she was circumcised and desired castration. Some suggested, my apologies, that this indicated one of the very first early signs of transsexualism, quote unquote, because technically that was a terminology back then in the day, but as we know it in today's terms and modern terminology as transgender. And despite her controversial actions, the surviving symbols of her reign, such as these coins, display the traditional Romanism, leading some historians to believe her cross-gender behavior was quote unquote exaggerated. And I like to say quote unquote on exaggerated too, because it's not an exaggeration. It's basically who she is. That's how I like to say it. The list of wild things Elagabalus did is a long one that was being told in the reports that I read. But some of her antics are especially memorable. For instance, like I said, when she married the Vestal Virgin, not just once, but twice, it's something that was actually like a major taboo in Roman society at this time. There are also stories of her dressing up as a woman, as a female prostitute, woman prostitute, same thing, and selling herself at this time as well. She even married a man. And guess what? As we could all guess, like I said at the beginning, it was a cross out for me. She declared herself not only an emperor, my apologies, but an empress. There we go. And as we navigate through Elagabalus's life, it's crucial to remember that studying history isn't, basically just like a walk in the park, right? The information that we have is often fragmented, incomplete, and usually not what people, are studying, So most of what we really know about Elagabalus comes from the Roman historian, Dio, is the last name, a senator and politician of the time. And it might be Dio, D-I-O, it might be Dio. I think I should have probably looked it up beforehand and Google translated it, but I'll just say D for now, was not just living during the emperor's or empress's reign, but was a part of her regime. But no, really, they say that there's a catch to this, that Dee wrote her story or her history of Rome under the patronage of Elagabalus's cousin, Severius Alexander, who actually took over after Elagabalus's assassination. So it was really in Dee's best interest to portray her patron's predecessors in a less basically flattering light, aka meaning that they tried to hide her cross-gender behavior. So when we examine Roman sexuality, it's a very fascinating thing to see that sexual insults are really common strategy for Roman authors, aiming to kind of dish out really some disrespect amongst each other. When we think about individuals like Julius Caesar, Mark Antony, and Nero, these individuals are all really victims of this kind of, insults that they were received throughout their time when they were living. So Roman views on sexuality were complex and more about really social status and power than who someone was actually attracted to. But I do want to know that, these rules really only applied at the time. And then, like I said, this is at this specific time to freeborn adult male Roman citizens, women slaves, freedmen, foreigners, and even, young men technically were included in these insults, which is why Elagabalus's identity kind of being held back for so long and then finally being brought to light that she was a transgender woman during the time of when she was ruling as empress in the Roman Empire is a big thing, especially to have that now. So as you think about, Elagabalus's life, and like I said, as I just talked about that specific paragraph about how this only applied really to adult male Roman citizens, and especially during the time in when she was ruling, this is why having our history be re-examined, not really our history because it's not from Italy, but having history be re-examined to capture moments of gender fluidity and sexuality is extremely important, because we need to be able to kind of go back into time to see how this all kind of played into today's times. Like, I think it's extremely important and a big win for us in the community to kind of see, like I said, extremely old, ancient history be brought back into the light and also be re-examined to further support the further support the community, for one, and also to say like, hey, gender and sexuality has always been a thing. We know this now. It's not a new phenomenon. Basically, stop being a dick. Sorry for the kids that's listening. But that's basically how it is. So as I wrap up, if you are new here, I always like to do key takeaways because it's a fun thing that I like to do. In case you decide that, hey, I already don't want to listen to this whole thing. Technically you did listen to the whole thing. You want to just kind of get the Cliff Notes version. This is where you can see me at. Key takeaways. Empress Elagabalus had a very brief, but like I said, turbulent reign, right, filled with daring deeds and bold proclamations that greatly really impacted the Roman society. Elagabalus' gender identity has been a topic of discussion among historians, with some suggesting, now we had the declaration of her being part of the trans community. And much of what we really know about, like I said, Elagabalus' life, like I said, although it may come from a Roman historian D, but really, like I said, having that specific individual kind of tell your life through the lens of someone else vastly shows the negativity surrounding gender identity, and why, like I said, we need to have this is the importance of oral histories being brought and preserved, so that those who are younger, like I said, really no matter your age, to be honest, but those who just want to learn and hear about stories from back in the day, when the future of our youth or young adults come into place, or even adults too as well, want to learn more about their history. Oral histories is the reason why we have this, to stop the blasphemy of negative portrayals of the actual experiences of people within the LGBTQ plus community. As I mentioned, of course, back in this time, and I'm not sure if this is current today. So if it's not current, I want people to kind of like post, make a comment or something. I'm not sure how Spotify or Apple Music works, but Roman views on sexuality were actually complex during this time. And was closely, like I said, tied to really more social status and power than anything else. And despite Elagabalus' reign kind of being very, very short-lived, she had a significant impact on our understanding of Roman history and also the fluidity of gender identities. So as I wrap up, it's fascinating to really dive into the life of Empress Elagabalus, especially with this new declaration, especially considering how it actually intertwines with transgender history. Now, the nuances around gender identity spark some obviously interesting conversations. An ancient tale suggests that she may have, well, it's not really she may, but like I said, she has been identified, as a transgender woman. And as you think about, like I said, these stories, I always like to appreciate, like I said, those who go out of their way, such as the North Hertfordshire Museum, to proudly embrace that, to respect Elagabalus' identity and also her pronouns when speaking about her moving forward, and making sure that we capture that and moving forward when we think about ancient Roman history. So with that, that's exactly where I want to leave you all today on this episode. I hope that I leave you a thought as you think about Empress Elagabalus, despite her short reign, but her profound mark as you think about, like I said, Roman history and transgender history as well. So as I wrap up, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I greatly appreciate it in my terrible dialect that I am not 1000% good at. I thank you all for coming in. If you have not done so already, please, you can follow us on social media. And yes, I'm still working on getting me a social media manager. You can follow us on social media at The Translation Plan on Instagram and Twitter. If you'd like to follow me, the host, Mari, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter as well at mariiiwrld. That's MAR3IWRLD. I really, really, really would love if y'all could share the podcast as many people as you possibly can, whether it's someone that you know that's part of the community, a parent, friend, ally, whoever that might be interested in learning a little bit more about transgender history. Like I said, I keep it short and concise for a reason. So just tell them like, hey, it ain't that long. You don't got to sit and listen to nothing too boring for too long. So please, 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 everyone share. I would greatly appreciate it. Continue. I greatly appreciate it. I want to shout you all out as my listeners for, I think I talked about this a couple of episodes ago about bigots leaving terrible comments and reviews underneath my podcast. Thank you all for who already, my apologies, have left comments to let people know that it's a safe space to come and listen. That's very insightful, etc. I absolutely 1000% appreciate that, because like I said, it's a one-man show. I don't look at the comments. I really don't care, or the reviews, but I know that others do sometimes before they listen to podcasts. And I don't want people to feel as they can't come to a safe space. So I greatly appreciate you all who have left comments to kind of cancel them out as much as possible. I work with Apple and Spotify to try to get those removed, but it might be a little bit of some time before that happens. So thank you all so much for that. And I will see you all for one more episode to close out season 6. Season 5, my apologies. I'm going to make sure that it's a good one. I really am. So bear with me. Thank you all so much for listening to today's podcast. Until next time, I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Happy Juneteenth to my Black folks. Happy Juneteenth. And I will see you all next week. Peace.